You're watching Outsiders with your hosts, Rowan, XY, Dean, James, observed male at birth, Morrow. And I'm Rita Panahi from such programs as The Rita Panahi Show, Monday to Thursdays at 11 and Lefties Losing It, Friday nights at 9:30. And talking about lefties losing it, it doesn't get more absurd than the weapon-grade gaslighting we're witnessing at the moment, where we are told to accept that Olympians who have failed gender eligibility tests should be allowed to beat up women in the boxing ring at the Paris Games. And challenging this lunacy makes you a bigot. We should disregard the evidence before our eyes and those pesky XY chromosomes. We're supposed to pretend that disorders of sex development give males a free pass to compete in women's events. On what planet is that fair to the female competitors? There was a time when men beating up women were, well, they were considered cowardly losers, not brave and stunning and deserving of applause and Olympic medals. To see boxers with XY chromosomes punch on with real women with XX chromosomes is appalling. It's something that belongs in a South Park sketch. Algeria's Imane Khelif and Taiwan's Lin Yuting were only last year thrown out of the Women's World Boxing Championship for failing gender eligibility tests. But there they are in Paris, beating the bejesus out of their unfortunate opponents. That the International Olympic Committee is allowing this travesty to take place at the Paris Games tells you just how insidious the LGBTQI movement's influence is in sport. And don't forget, the I in LGBTQI stands for intersex. These boxers are not trans, but it's the trans or the LGBTQI movement that sees the IOC kowtow to radical gender theory. It's why we get absurd statements like this from IOC spokesman Mark Adams.
There has been some confusion that somehow it's a man fighting a woman. This is just not the case. Scientifically, on that there is consensus. Scientifically, this is not a man fighting a woman.
Oh, really? There's scientific consensus now, really? Then why were the pair who have XY chromosomes, according to the president of the International Boxing Association, why were they in 2023 thrown out of the Women's World Boxing Championship for failing gender eligibility tests? There's no question, there's scientific consensus, really? Why did they not appeal that unfair ruling if there is scientific consensus that XY chromosomes mean you can be a woman, as long as you were raised as one or identify as one or it says female on your passport? The IBA has released statements clarifying just why these two were banned. And it wasn't due to a testosterone test, but testing that conclusively showed the athletes did not meet the eligibility requirements to compete in the women's competition. The IBA also stated our committees have rigorously reviewed and endorsed the decision made during the World Championships. While IBA remains committed to ensuring competitive fairness in all of our events, we express concern over the inconsistent application of eligibility criteria by other sporting organisations, including those overseeing the Olympic Games. Olympic officials have now admitted that the pair have disorders of sex development, but they won't be taking action because apparently, well, the boxers aren't that good at boxing. They get beaten by women regularly. I mean, tell that to the Italian boxer who quit her match within a minute in tears. And then it looks like she was pressured into apologising. The truth is, despite the Caster Semenya scandal, the IOC is burying its head in the sand and happy to allow athletes with XY chromosomes to compete in women's competitions as long as their passport says female. They have labelled conclusive sex testing as disgraceful. Disgraceful to do sex testing. And as Jacqueline Magnay reports in the Australian newspaper today, even if the sex testing was introduced, the Olympic movement wouldn't act on results because they have a different definition of a woman, which includes XY athletes such as trans women and disorders of sex development athletes. So we are in the midst of this lunacy due in large part to the radical gender theory where feelings trump biological certainties, like the fact that men those with XY chromosomes, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they hit harder. And right now, the activists are pushing all sorts of crazy conspiracy theories, including Russian conspiracy theories and Zionist conspiracy theories, to divert attention away from the simple fact that athletes with XY chromosomes, regardless of how they were raised or how they identify, should not be competing in women's sport. Any women's sport, but particularly a combat sport like boxing. Of course, we have sympathy for those who have disorders of sex development, but we cannot overlook the fact that if they have XY chromosomes, they have an unfair advantage, and if they want to compete, it should be in the men's competition. No sane person with any sense of fairness and rationality thinks what is happening right now is fair. But too many have been cowed into silence, or worse, they have become advocates for a movement that is pushing dangerous anti-women policies in the name of tolerance and inclusion. Now, before I go, today Kamala Harris refused Donald Trump's offer of a debate on September 4. In front of a crowd, she wants the conditions of the debate Trump agreed to with Joe Biden, but Joe's gone, Kamala. You may have taken his nomination, but you don't get to take his debate conditions too. Look, I'm not sure what she's scared of. She's never been great at debates. We saw what Tulsi did to her back in 2019, but Kamala can switch it up like few others. This is her getting all southern and urban when talking in front of a mainly black audience.
I said to the congressman, I didn't know he could preach like that. Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets, and let me tell you, as they say, they not like us. Do I see people testifying? Can I get a witness?
So authentic, isn't she? Compare her accent there to what we just heard to how she sounds normally, like when she appeared on the set of a drag queen show.
We are all in this together, and your vote is your power. So please make sure your voice is heard this November.
Who's the real Kamala? And as for the media outrage about Donald Trump pointing out that she has in the past identified as Indian as opposed to black, well, here she is back in 2019 talking about how proud she is of her Indian heritage.
Yes.
You are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian,
yes,
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yes.